It was one of those cold, quiet Saturday mornings that made you grateful to live in the mountains. I was sipping coffee at the kitchen counter, sunlight spilling through the big windows of our condo in Flagstaff. The pine trees outside swayed gently, and the hum of the kettle filled the silence. For once, I was in no rush. No meetings, no back-to-back logistics calls, just peace. "Hey," I said over my shoulder, hearing her footsteps from the bedroom. "We still doing brunch at Wild today?" Elena didn't respond at first. She crossed behind me, heading straight for the fridge in one of my old sweatshirts and those high-waisted leggings she wore when she didn't feel like trying. Her hair was tied up in a way that used to feel casual and cute. Now, it just looked like she didn't care. "I'm not your personal concierge, Lyle," she muttered flatly, grabbing a bottle of coconut water. I blinked. It wasn't the words that hit me. It was the way she said them. No irritation. No frustration. Just pure disinterest. Like I wasn't even worth the effort of being mad at. A weird stillness filled the kitchen. I stared down at my mug, heart thudding once, then sinking like a stone in my chest. That's when I knew. It wasn't work stress. It wasn't hormones or the post-holiday slump. It was contempt. And contempt doesn't whisper, it carves you out slowly, like rot under paint. "You don't want to go?" I asked carefully. She twisted the cap open, took a sip, and shrugged. "I have stuff to do." "Stuff like what?" Elena didn't answer. She was already halfway down the hallway, the conversation tossed over her shoulder like trash. I stayed at the counter, the smell of fresh coffee suddenly turning sour. My brain tried to rationalize, maybe she was tired, maybe she didn't sleep well. But my gut had no such illusions. This wasn't new. Her laugh had gone missing months ago. The affectionate touches, the inside jokes, the way she used to grab my hand just because, all of it had faded like old paint and sun. And here I was, still clinging to the hope that brunch would fix it. I thought back to last year, how we'd spent this same Saturday driving down to Sedona just to split blueberry pancakes and wander through art galleries. Back then, she'd leaned into me during the car ride, fingers tracing the seam of my jeans, telling me I smelled like cedarwood and home. Now, I could barely get her to look me in the eye. I walked over to the living room and sat down, trying to shake it off, but my heart wouldn't let it go. I knew what was happening. I just hadn't wanted to face it until now. This wasn't distance. This was decay. There's something crueler than anger. At least when someone's mad, they still care enough to feel something. But Elena? She was checked out. Cold in a way that told me the decision had already been made in her mind. She just hadn't bothered to clue me in yet. I didn't say another word to her that morning. We didn't go to brunch. She went to a yoga class or maybe just out to kill time. I didn't ask. I spent the rest of the day walking through town, watching couples laughing on street corners, brushing fingers in bookstore aisles. And I felt like a ghost. Like someone watching his own relationship through glass. That night, we didn't eat dinner together. She brought home takeout and disappeared into the bedroom with her phone, mumbling something about needing to rest. I sat in the den, the TV on mute, staring at the quiet flicker of the screen. We used to be good. I wasn't perfect. But I showed up. I listened. I loved her with my whole damn heart. But I couldn't fix something she had already given up on. And now that contempt had spoken, I couldn't unhear it. I didn't know what I'd find next. But I knew this. I was done pretending we were okay. I couldn't sleep that night. The clock on my side of the bed blinked 1:17 a.m. in harsh red numbers. Elena was turned away from me, phone tucked under her pillow, one arm dangling off the edge like she couldn't even be bothered to share space with me anymore. I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight, the kind of pressure that feels like you're drowning in dry air. It wasn't just the brunch thing. It was everything. The offhand remarks. The dead-eyed responses. The way she always seemed to be texting someone, even at dinner. I used to trust her. I really did. But trust doesn't survive in silence. And that's all we've been lately, quiet. I finally grabbed my phone and walked out into the living room, closing the door behind me. I didn't go to her profile. That would be too clean. I went to the tagged photos. That's where the real stuff lives. The parts people forget to curate. It didn't take long. One story tag. From someone named at Mel_Lovison Sets, who I vaguely remembered from a winery party last fall. The clip was short, maybe 4 seconds. Elena, in her signature oversized scarf and beanie, standing outside the Green Line bus terminal. The snack shop's fluorescent light washed over her face. She was laughing, really laughing, like I hadn't seen in months. And then this guy leaned in from the side of the frame. Young, maybe mid-20s. Tight jawline, scruffy beard, backwards cap. One of those guys who looks like he still thinks being a barista is a personality. He kissed her. Not on the cheek. Full on. And she kissed him back. No hesitation. No guilt. Just like it was normal. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the pause button. I didn't feel what I thought I'd feel. Not devastation. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It wasn't a mistake or some one-time misstep fueled by whine and regret. This was a choice. She had chosen him. Not in theory. Not in some romanticized emotional way. She had chosen him with her body. With her laughter. With her mouth. With her time. The guy in the video was a kid. Lean. Casual. A little too pleased with himself. The opposite of me in every way. I worked a stable job. I wore button-downs. I paid bills early. I scheduled oil changes 2 weeks in advance. I was consistent, dependable. And apparently, that wasn't enough. I saved the video, just to remind myself I wasn't imagining things. Then I sent a screenshot to Dave. You work night shifts at the downtown bus terminal, right? You ever seen this guy around? Dave answered in less than a minute. That's how I knew he was still up doing his usual graveyard security shift. Oh yeah, he texted. That's Cal. Works the snack bar. Bit of a punk, always flirting with college girls. Thinks he's God's gift. Why? No reason, I replied. Appreciate it. I sat there with the phone in my lap, the room cold around me. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of answers. Elena hadn't been distant because she was tired. She hadn't been cold because life was stressful. She just stopped choosing me. And now, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't angry. I was awake. A part of me that had been sleepwalking for months snapped into focus. She could have talked to me. She could have said she was unhappy, confused, whatever. But instead, she kissed a guy in a bus terminal parking lot. And she smiled like she'd been waiting for that moment all along. I put my phone on the coffee table, stood up, and walked to the kitchen. My hand hovered over the bourbon bottle, then dropped. I didn't want numbness. I wanted to feel this. This wasn't grief. It was a clean break. A reset. The quiet was different now. Not empty. Just mine. By Monday morning, the clarity hadn't faded. It sharpened. Elena still hadn't said anything. She left early that day, said she had errands to run, a meeting with her old coworker about a freelance gig. Her tone was breezy, like we hadn't spent the weekend wrapped in silence. Like she hadn't been caught on camera making out with a guy who sells Slim Jims and microwaves burritos for a living. I watched her drive off through the front window, one hand on her phone, the other barely on the wheel. Her tires crunched over gravel as she pulled away. I didn't feel a thing. No sadness. No regret. Just the click of something final in my chest. By noon, I'd already contacted the bank. Everything that had both our names on it was getting reviewed. Joint credit card, the emergency account we opened last spring, the savings we never used. I had passwords. Access. She never really paid attention to that stuff anyway. She liked to say I was better with numbers. I shut down the shared credit card first, froze the account, stopped auto payments, rerouted all alerts to my phone. Then I opened new ones in my name only. I unlinked her from our Amazon Prime, Netflix, Spotify. I updated my direct deposit to flow into a separate account. I made a list, utilities, car insurance, the water bill, and started switching them over one by one. It was like clearing a whiteboard, erasing her, line by line. At 2:15 p.m., I sent her a text. Hey, notice some unusual activity on our shared card. I've paused it for now. We'll talk later. 3 minutes later, she replied. Unusual activity? What kind? I didn't do anything. Should I be worried? Her panic was faint, but there. Like a rabbit catching the scent of smoke before seeing the fire. I waited 10 minutes before responding. It's nothing serious. Just seemed like things have gotten a little too loose lately. She didn't answer right away. When she finally did, it was a little too chipper. Okay, weird tone. But sure. We'll talk tonight. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed out a spreadsheet of our financials. Everything she used. Everything I controlled. I put it in a folder and left it in the office drawer. Just in case she started asking questions with more teeth later. By the time she got home, I was in the den, pretending to scroll through emails on my laptop. She walked in carrying a tote bag from some local boutique she liked. Her lips were a little too glossy, her hair just messy enough to look styled. I looked up once, nodded, then looked back at my screen. Hey, she said, voice light. Everything okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, just working through some things. She hovered a second too long by the doorway, like she wanted to say more, but couldn't quite find her footing. Okay, well, I'm gonna go start dinner. You want anything special? Nope. She hesitated, then walked away. Her heels clicked softly down the hallway. That was the thing. She was starting to feel it. Not the betrayal. Not the guilt. Just the shift. For so long, I'd played my part. Predictable. Reliable. She knew I'd keep the lights on, the fridge full, the taxes paid. She'd wander off emotionally, but the ground beneath her never shook. Until now. Now, something was different. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't accusing her. I wasn't asking questions. I was moving. Silently. Intentionally. And the part that scared her the most? She didn't know the rules of this new game. I found the flyer at the car wash of all places. It was taped to the coin change machine, half covered by a business card for a dog groomer and a lost cat notice. White paper, black text, no flashy design, just a name in all caps. Zena. Below that, in tiny print, home organization. Quiet help for overwhelmed lives. I stood there, the hose still running behind me, and stared at the flyer longer than I meant to. Quiet help, it said. That's what caught me. Later that afternoon, I called the number. Her voice was low and deliberate, like every word was measured. Not warm exactly, but not cold either. Just steady. We set an appointment for Thursday. She showed up at 9 on the dot. Not early, not late. No handshake, no pleasantries. Just walked in with a small canvas bag and nodded once before slipping off her shoes. Zena was maybe mid-40s, maybe older. Slender. Dark eyes. Her accent was Eastern European, Serbian, she said later. She wore black from head to toe. Not in a dramatic way. Just efficient. She didn't ask what I wanted. She didn't give me a quote or make small talk about the weather. She looked around the condo, paused in each room, then began with the office. That's where I felt it first. She started sorting papers without needing to be told which ones mattered. Old receipts went in one pile. Tax folders in another. Cables coiled neatly, cords tied down with soft brown twine. She didn't touch my laptop or personal drawers. Just arranged around them. She worked in silence for hours. No earbuds. No humming. No complaints. And the strangest thing? It felt safe. She didn't ask about Elena. Didn't point at the pictures or the half-full laundry basket in the hallway. She just moved through the space with a kind of quiet precision that felt like ritual. By the time she reached the living room, the place already looked different. Less like a home waiting for someone to return. More like a man had claimed it back. She didn't go near the bedroom. I noticed that. She stopped at the edge of the hall and turned instead into the den. It was deliberate. She never touched Elena's closet or nightstand. Never asked. But in my side of the closet, she lingered. She refolded shirts. Wiped down the wooden hangers. Took a lint roller to a coat I hadn't worn in months. When Elena came home that day, Zena was reorganizing the bookshelf in the den, sorting hardcovers by size, not color. I heard the keys hit the table. What's going on? Elena asked from the doorway. Zena didn't answer. She didn't even look up. Just continued aligning spines. I stood behind her, arms crossed. Elena, I said calmly, this is Zena. She's helping me get things in order. Elena looked from me to her, then back. You hired someone? Without talking to me. I met her eyes. I didn't think I needed to. She blinked. Okay. Well, that's new. Zena didn't flinch. She moved on to dusting the baseboards. Elena hovered like she wanted to assert control, but didn't know how. The power dynamic had changed, and she felt it. That night, something strange happened. Elena cooked. Really cooked. Lamb roast. Potatoes with rosemary. Candles lit. Jazz playing on the Bluetooth speaker. Linen napkins folded, not just paper towels. We hadn't had a sit-down dinner in weeks. She poured me a glass of wine and smiled like everything was fine. Thought we could slow down tonight. I nodded once. Smells good. She watched me take the first bite. Her face searching for a reaction, any signal that she still had influence, that she could pull me back in. I looked around the kitchen. The counters were spotless. The floor swept. The air smelled like lemon oil and meat, and something floral I couldn't place. I swallowed and said it without thinking. The house feels clean. Her spoon froze midair. She stared at me for half a second too long. And that's when I knew. She didn't make this dinner because she missed me. She made it because she was scared. Scared of Zena. Not because of who Zena was, but what she represented. Order. Clarity. A woman who didn't ask permission. And Elena knew, deep down, that her place in this house was no longer a given. It had become negotiable, and the negotiation had already started without her. The change wasn't immediate. It crept in like steam under a door. By the following week, the condo looked like a model home. No clutter, no laundry in the hallway, no coffee mugs left in the sink. Every room smelled faintly of lavender and citrus. Zena came twice more. She never said much. She didn't have to. Elena changed. Not with words. With effort. Every day she started doing things she hadn't done in months. She arranged throw pillows on the couch like we had guests coming. Cooked elaborate dinners, osso buco on Tuesday, handmade ravioli on Friday. One night, she put on lipstick just to ask if I wanted a cup of tea. Another night, I came home to a handwritten note on the counter. Hope today wasn't too heavy. There's banana bread cooling on the stove. She was trying, but not to fix what she broke. She was trying to reset the scene, to pull me back in without acknowledging what she'd done. The air in the house grew tight with performance. Candles burned in the bathroom. Fresh eucalyptus appeared in a ceramic vase by the TV. She bought new placemats. Baked scones. Paused at the hallway mirror longer than usual, adjusting herself like a stage actor before curtain call. I watched it all. Quiet. Still. She never said sorry. Never brought up Cal. And I never brought it up either. She wasn't apologizing, she was campaigning. Every time I walked into a freshly wiped room or found my sweaters folded tighter than I'd ever managed, it became more obvious Elena wasn't rebuilding trust. She was auditioning for forgiveness without reading the script. Zena noticed first. On Thursday morning, I made coffee while she reorganized the hall closet. She paused over a stack of scarves, ran her finger along the shelf edge, and said quietly, "Busy is not always healing." I looked up. "What do you mean?" She straightened the stack and turned toward me. "Sometimes busy just hides bleeding." I didn't say anything, just nodded slowly. She gave a small shrug and went back to work. Elena came home that afternoon while Zena was still folding towels in the linen closet. The two of them passed in the hallway without a word. Elena didn't look at her. Zena didn't stop folding. That night, Elena made duck confit. She even garnished the plates. I sat across from her at the candlelit table, watching her swirl wine in her glass like she cared about notes and tannins. She talked about a new Pilates studio opening downtown, about switching moisturizers, about how she was thinking of repainting the guest room. She was animated, bright, lively, a better version of herself. But I wasn't buying it. I didn't nod. I didn't argue. I didn't praise the duck. I just listened and tracked her like I was prepping a quarterly report, quiet, detached, clinical. Because I wasn't looking at the woman I fell in love with. I was observing someone auditioning for a part she already lost. And I wasn't bitter. I was done. It was supposed to be a simple errand. We were out of toothpaste, and I needed fresh air. The condo had started to feel like a showroom, too clean, too quiet, too heavy with lavender and unspoken things. I grabbed my keys and drove to the corner convenience store near the highway, the one with the blinking open 24 hours sign and the faded Coke machine out front. The door dinged as I walked in. The place was nearly empty, just the old guy behind the counter and someone mopping up near the coolers. I grabbed a tube of toothpaste and a Gatorade. As I headed toward the register, a voice called from behind the chip rack. "Lyle?" I turned. It was Ian, my cousin. Shorter than I remembered, with the same scruffy beard and backwards hat he'd had since high school. I forgot he worked part-time here. Used to be full-time, then something happened with his shoulder. Or maybe his license. I never asked. "Hey, man," I said, forcing a tired smile. He stepped around the counter, wiping his hands on a napkin. "Been a minute." "Yeah." He glanced down at the toothpaste in my hand. "Big night ahead, huh?" I smirked. "Just staying minty." He chuckled. Then he squinted at me. "Hey, wasn't that Elena I used to see coming in here with that guy? Skinny dude, always wore a Carhartt jacket? Looked like a drummer but worked the snack counter." My stomach didn't flip. My hands didn't sweat. I just stared at him and said calmly, "Yeah, that sounds like him." Ian nodded, oblivious to the landmine he'd just stepped on. She used to come in all the time. Like clockwork. Late afternoons, mostly. I remember, 'cause they were always in the snack aisle laughing about something. Loud. Like, real loud. She was kinda all over him, man. I said nothing. He scratched his jaw. But I haven't seen her in a while. Maybe a month? He still works down at the bus terminal, I think. Heard he dumped some chick recently. Said she got too attached, too fast. He looked up and met my eyes. "Wait, that wasn't..." "Yeah," I said quietly. That was Elena. Ian winced. Shit, man. I didn't realize. I would not have said anything. It's fine. I meant it. Because it really, truly was. She didn't end it. Cal did. She didn't come back to me because she saw the light or realized her mistake. She came back because she was discarded. Because she lost. Suddenly the jazz, the duck confit, the candlelight, the new perfume, it all made sense. It wasn't love. It was recovery. Performance. Panic. She hadn't returned to rebuild. She had returned to be rescued. And I wasn't offering that anymore. I paid for my toothpaste and Gatorade. Ian gave me the employee discount without asking. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange weight lift. Not hope. Not joy. Just clarity. And for the first time in months, I drove home without wondering who she really was. I already knew. The next morning started like any other. Too quiet. Too neat. Like someone had staged our condo for a magazine spread about healing after hardship, except the hardship was still walking around in slippers and expensive moisturizer. Elena had taken to making coffee for both of us again, hand-poured, single origin, the whole show. She slid a mug in front of me as I sat at the kitchen counter. Her robe was loose at the waist, her shoulders slightly hunched like she wanted to seem soft. Vulnerable. I thought maybe we could talk, she said gently. Her voice was raw. I know things have been strange lately. But before she could finish, Zena walked in. She didn't knock. She never did. She appeared barefoot in the entryway, wearing a pale silk robe that somehow didn't look provocative, just clean. Serene. Like she had stepped out of a dream and into the room with purpose. She looked at me. Shall I begin in the bedroom today? I didn't flinch. Yes, please. Elena's mug clinked as she set it down too hard. I'm sorry. What? She said, blinking. What do you mean the bedroom? Zena turned slowly toward her, her face unreadable. I clean when I'm allowed to enter. Something about that line split the air. Like a dropped plate, quiet, then shatter. Elena looked at me, confused, then back at her. What are you even doing here right now? Zena didn't answer. She padded down the hallway without another word. And then Elena exploded. No, she said, rising from the stool. No. This is insane. Who the hell is she? Lyle? Why is she walking through our house like she owns it? I stood slowly, set my mug down, and kept my voice calm. She doesn't own it. Her eyes narrowed. But you let her in. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Elena stormed toward the hallway, her voice rising. Zena, you don't get to just walk into my bedroom and start touching things. Zena's voice floated back, quiet and steady. I don't touch what isn't mine. That's when Elena snapped. She grabbed the ceramic mug from the counter, hers, not mine, and hurled it toward the sink. It missed, shattered against the tile backsplash in a white spray of porcelain. Silence. Zena stepped calmly back into view. She didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She looked at the shards on the floor, then at Elena. You broke something. Elena's chest heaved. Her lips trembled, hands still clenched in fists. You don't get to talk to me like that. Zena looked at me. I nodded once. She turned and walked out without another word. Elena stared after her, stunned. Frozen. The silence in the condo grew deep. Still. Finally, I looked at her. My voice was steady. You broke yourself. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. No denial. No excuse. Just silence. And for once, she didn't follow me when I left the room. It was overcast the next day. The kind of light that flattens everything. No shadows, no warmth, just a soft, gray hush over the world. I woke up before her. Not because I was restless, but because I was ready. I brewed 1 cup of coffee. Mine. Sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, opened the folder I'd prepared the night before, and printed the divorce papers. Clean. Professional. No drama baked into the language, just facts, finality, and my signature. By the time Elena woke up, the smell of brewing coffee had already faded. The house was still. Too still. She wandered out in a sweatshirt and leggings, rubbing her eyes, the aftermath of the fight still written in her posture. Her eyes flicked toward me, but I didn't say anything. I was already slipping the papers into a manila envelope. Then I picked up a pen and wrote a single line on a piece of thick notepaper. Folded it once. Tucked it on top of the stack. I stood and left it all on the reclaimed wood table by the window, the one she had insisted we buy for its character, even though the thing wobbled when you leaned too hard on it. I didn't wait for her to come out and see it. I didn't wait to explain. I didn't wait for permission to go. Because I didn't need it. The front door shut behind me with a soft click, and for the first time in months, my breath came easy. I didn't know where I was going that morning. I just drove. Windows down. No music. Just the hum of the tires on pavement and the slow, quiet knowledge that I had done what I needed to do. I'd given her everything. My time. My trust. My silence. Now, I was giving her the only thing left: freedom. By the time I returned that night, the lights in the condo were dim. I didn't ask if she'd read the papers. Didn't ask if she'd read the note. I already knew she had, because she hadn't touched the table. The envelope still sat there, unopened. But the note, my handwriting, centered on crisp white paper, was turned just slightly, like she'd picked it up and set it back down with shaking hands. It said, "Your fantasy cost you everything, except the ficus." No signature. No explanation. The ficus stood tall by the back window. Still green. Still growing. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. No dreams. No noise. No questions. I didn't check if she signed. That was her burden now, not mine. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. I got up around 8, made myself a cup of black coffee, and sat on the edge of the couch without turning on the TV, just watching the soft mountain light filter through the window. The envelope was still on the table, sealed, untouched. Or so I thought. I didn't hear her approach, but when I turned slightly, there she was. Elena sat at the same table where I'd left the papers, my old hoodie wrapped around her like a shield. Her hair was loose, eyes puffy, hands resting on top of the envelope like it might bite if she opened it again. She didn't say anything right away. Then, is this really how it ends? Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't begging, either. Just small. Tired. I stood up, walked over, and set a small stack of printed photos on the table. No words. Just images. For stills from that tag story. Her laughing with Cal. Her leaning against him, fingers in his hoodie pocket. Her kissing him with her whole body like she hadn't kissed me in over a year. Her smiling afterward like she hadn't just thrown everything away. She stared at the photos. Didn't touch them. Didn't blink. "I didn't do it to hurt you," she whispered. I needed to feel alive." I nodded. Not in agreement, just acknowledgement. "And was it worth it?" I asked. Her lip twitched, but she didn't cry. Not this time. She couldn't answer. I waited 5 seconds. Then 10. Nothing. So I turned and walked away. I didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. Just left her sitting there, surrounded by the evidence of her choices. The note. The papers. The photos. My hoodie, soft from too many washes. The ficus still catching the morning light, oblivious. She didn't follow me. The house felt still. Finally. The courthouse was as dull and gray as I remembered from the last time I'd been there for a traffic summons, years ago. This time, though, the stakes were different. I arrived early. Slacks, button down, clean shave. Not because I wanted to look good for anyone. Just because I wanted to walk in like a man who was already gone. The filing process was smooth. The clerk barely looked up as she stamped the documents and slid them into a tray marked dissolutions. Elena had already signed. I half expected she wouldn't. But she did. Sloppy, tight signature, like she was gripping the pen too hard. No drama. No delay. By 10:30 that morning, I was no longer engaged. No longer tied to a woman who once whispered forever into my ear while planning a future with someone else on the side. Outside, the sky had opened up. Sunlight spilled over the courthouse steps. The air was crisp, the kind that makes you feel like you've woken up in a new place, even if it's still the same town. Elena was standing by the curb. She wore sunglasses and a long camel coat. Her posture was too straight, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. I hadn't expected her to show up in person, but then again, maybe she just needed to see it through, to prove to herself that something still belonged to her. Her lawyer, some clean-cut guy in expensive shoes, stood a few feet back, flipping through a folder. I nodded to him, civil but distant. She stepped forward, just enough to block my path. "I didn't think you'd really go through with it," she said softly. I stopped, looked at her, just for a second. "That was your first mistake." She flinched, barely. I didn't wait for a reply. I just kept walking. Down the steps, past the traffic circle, into the kind of morning that promises absolutely nothing. And somehow, that felt like freedom. Behind me, I didn't hear footsteps. No crying. No protests. No one calling my name. Just silence. And for once, that was all I wanted. Some stories don't end in explosions. Some don't need revenge or closure. Sometimes, The exit is enough.